Most people think England became powerful because it was lucky. A small island, protected by water, blessed with good leaders, and perfectly positioned for trade. But history is rarely that simple. England did not rise because of luck. It rose because of struggle, conflict, ambition, and a series of ruthless decisions that changed the balance of global power forever. To understand England's rise, we must first understand how small and fragile it once was. In the early medieval period, England was not a united kingdom. It was divided into small Anglo-Saxon territories that constantly fought each other. There was no strong central authority, no mighty navy, no vast empire. In fact, England was often the target of invasion rather than the invader. Vikings attacked its coasts. Norman forces conquered it in 1066. For centuries, England was shaped more by foreign influence than by its own control. This is the first contrast that defines its story. Before it ruled the seas, it struggled to defend its shores. Before it built an empire, it fought for survival. The Norman Conquest in 1066 marked a turning point. William the Conqueror did not just take the throne, he reorganized the entire political structure. He introduced a strong feudal system, centralized authority, and a new ruling class. Power was no longer scattered. It was concentrated. This created stability, and stability created opportunity. But stability alone does not create dominance. England still faced powerful rivals, especially France. For centuries, the English crown fought costly wars on French soil. The 100 Years' War drained resources and tested the nation's endurance. At times, England seemed close to collapse. Yet these wars also strengthened national identity. A divided land slowly began to see itself as one people. Conflict was shaping character. Then came another internal crisis, the Wars of the Roses. Two rival families, Lancaster and York, fought brutally for the throne. The country was once again on the edge of chaos. However, from this chaos emerged the Tudor dynasty. When Henry VII took power in 1485, he understood something crucial: endless noble rivalries weakened the state. He reduced the power of rebellious lords and strengthened the monarchy. Control became tighter. Authority became clearer. And then came Henry VIII. While often remembered for his 6 marriages, Henry VIII made a decision that transformed England's future. By breaking away from the Roman Catholic Church and establishing the Church of England, he reduced foreign religious influence and increased royal authority. This move was political as much as spiritual. It allowed the crown to control wealth that once belonged to the Church. Resources shifted. Power shifted. Under Elizabeth I, this transformation accelerated. England was still not the richest or strongest nation in Europe. Spain held vast territories in the Americas and controlled immense wealth from silver and gold. The Spanish Empire seemed unstoppable. Yet England challenged it. When the Spanish Armada sailed in 1588 to invade England, the odds were against the English fleet. Spain's navy was larger and more experienced. But strategy, weather, and determination combined in England's favor. The defeat of the Armada became a symbol. England was no longer merely defending itself. It was daring to confront global powers. Here we see another contrast. A small island confronting the world's greatest empire, and surviving. But survival was only the beginning. The real transformation came with the sea. England realized something powerful: land wars were expensive and unpredictable, but naval strength could open doors across the world. Trade routes meant wealth. Colonies meant resources. A strong navy meant protection and influence. So England invested heavily in ships, exploration, and maritime technology. The establishment of the East India Company in 1600 marked the beginning of commercial expansion on a global scale. At first, it was just a trading company. But trade brought profit, and profit brought influence. Over time, economic presence turned into political control. This pattern repeated across continents. Meanwhile, at home, England faced another massive test, the English Civil War. King Charles I clashed with Parliament over power and taxation. The conflict exploded into violence. The king was executed. For a brief period, England became a republic under Oliver Cromwell. It was a shocking development in a world dominated by monarchies. Although the monarchy was later restored, something fundamental had changed. The idea that power could be limited had taken root. Parliament grew stronger. The Glorious Revolution of 1688 further restricted royal authority and established constitutional principles. Unlike many European states ruled by absolute monarchs, England developed a system where power was balanced. This balance created stability again, but a different kind of stability. It encouraged investment, protected property rights, and allowed merchants to take risks. Economic energy increased. Financial institutions like the Bank of England were established. Trade expanded rapidly. And then came the Industrial Revolution. While other nations relied mainly on agriculture, England transformed production. New machines, steam engines, and factories changed how goods were made. Coal and iron resources fueled innovation. Urban centers grew. Productivity exploded. England was no longer just a trading nation, it was becoming the workshop of the world. This industrial power gave England a decisive advantage. It could produce weapons, ships, textiles, and machinery faster and cheaper than competitors. Its navy protected trade routes from India to the Caribbean. Its empire expanded across North America, Africa, Asia, and Australia. But this expansion was not peaceful or harmless. Colonization brought exploitation, cultural destruction, and conflict. Wealth flowed into Britain, but often at great cost to others. The empire's rise contained both ambition and aggression. By the 19th century, Britain stood at the center of global politics. The phrase, "the empire on which the sun never sets," was not an exaggeration. Its territories stretched across time zones. Its navy ruled the oceans. London became a financial capital of the world. Yet even at its height, the seeds of challenge were growing. Rival powers like Germany and the United States were industrializing rapidly. Global competition intensified. The two world wars of the 20th century drained Britain's strength. Maintaining such a vast empire became impossible. Still, the legacy of England's rise remained powerful. Its language spread worldwide. Its legal and political systems influenced many nations. Its cultural impact endured. England's story is not simply about conquest or luck. It is about adaptation. Each crisis, whether invasion, civil war, or foreign threat, forced change. Each change reshaped the nation. From a divided island to a global empire, the rise of England was neither smooth nor inevitable. It was built through resilience, calculated risk, and relentless ambition. Yet the most important lesson in England's rise is not found in its victories, but in its ability to reinvent itself when decline seemed certain. After the devastation of the First and Second World Wars, Britain was financially exhausted. Cities were damaged, industries weakened, and debts had piled up. The empire that once stretched across continents began to dissolve. India gained independence in 1947. Many African and Asian colonies soon followed. The imperial structure that had defined British power for centuries was fading. For some nations, such a loss would have meant permanent decline. But Britain adjusted its identity. Instead of ruling territories directly, it strengthened alliances. It became a central member of NATO. It maintained a special relationship with the United States. London remained a global financial hub, adapting to modern banking and international investment. Once again, power shifted form rather than disappearing. This transformation highlights a deeper pattern. England's strength was never based only on territory. It was rooted in institutions, adaptability, and strategic thinking. When sea power mattered most, it built the strongest navy. When industry shaped dominance, it led the Industrial Revolution. When empires collapsed, it pivoted toward diplomacy, finance, and cultural influence. Another contrast becomes clear here. At its peak, Britain controlled land through force. In the modern era, its influence travels through language, education, media, and economic networks. English became an international language of business and science. British universities attracted students from around the world. Cultural exports, from literature to music, shaped global tastes. Of course, the story remains complex. Debates about colonial history, economic inequality, and political change continue today. The rise to power brought both progress and pain. It created wealth and opportunity, but it also left wounds that are still discussed in many parts of the world. What makes England's rise remarkable is not that it avoided crisis. It faced invasion, civil war, religious conflict, rebellion, and global warfare. What makes it remarkable is that each crisis forced transformation. Weakness triggered reform. Threat encouraged innovation. In the end, England's journey from a vulnerable island to a dominant global force was not a straight line. It was a cycle of challenge and response. Power was earned, tested, reshaped, and sometimes reduced, but rarely surrendered without adaptation. History shows that nations, like individuals, rise not because circumstances are perfect, but because they respond effectively when circumstances are harsh. England's rise to power is a story of resilience, ambition, and constant reinvention, proof that influence belongs not only to the strongest, but to the most adaptable.